Hi guys, it's your girl CC Stanleys and you are with me on This Girl Vents. Guys, I'm so excited to talk to you today on PRZ FM 109.2. Just to remind you, if you do want to email me with any queries, any questions or any requests, just get at me at thisgirlvents@przfm.com. That is thisgirlvents@przfm.com. So let's get into it. Okay, so the topic we're going to be venting about today is daddy issues. Yes, big one. So just a little disclaimer to precede the entire talk, the entire radio show, just to let you know. Nothing is said at any particular person or to cause harm or to, offend or any of the cases. And also, should you feel that these particular things that will be mentioned during the show might represent you or represent someone you know, it's actually perfectly okay to seek help, to seek advice, to seek out a professional who you can speak to, who you can talk to, and who can get into your mind as well alongside you. So, daddy issues. Why did I want to talk about daddy issues? I was reading this particular post a while ago where it talked about black women being the most unwatered, they're uncatered for, but they still come out shining and stuff like that. But it also mentioned that black families, for example, are the ones that have the highest rate of MIA fathers, i.e. fathers who are missing in action and are nowhere to be found. So I was looking at the meaning of daddy issues, even though I kind of have my own stored definition of what daddy issues could mean. I really wanted to do my own bit of research just to get a bit into it and just to find out, okay, what is this? So I'm just going to give you guys a little something about what I learned. So it was saying, most women fortunate enough to have a special relationship with their father wear that title as a badge of honor. And people say a woman has daddy issues when her behavior or mindset indicates that her father was either absent in her life completely or physically present but emotionally unavailable. That's very interesting. We're going to get into that physically present but emotionally unavailable in a while. The other definition for daddy issues I wanted to go into was when a female has a bad relationship with her father that walked out on her, causing her to seek male attention. This attention is often of a sexual nature and makes her to seem promiscuous. I thought that was very, 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 very interesting. We'll also talk about men in a little while as well. But I just wanted to go into the daddy issues. I'll use myself as an example. I did have a father in my life. I did. But I think at some point, I don't know what happened with the emotional availability, but it wasn't actually there. And I can't actually blame him completely because me, myself, by the time I grew older, maybe I just got myself accustomed to that type of behavior. And that was exactly what I was feeding off as well. So it was mutual. You were not talking, I wasn't talking, and that was the end of that. So just to go into this a little bit, there is actually an importance. I have to say the nuclear family was actually created or was suggested as a big deal because it is actually a big deal. It is very important to have a father and a mother in the life of a child, to have a male figure, a female figure, who can both impart their own bits of wisdom, knowledge, things that they may have accrued over time mentally, emotionally, things that they may have learned that they feel, we're going to teach this young child. I think it's very important to have that. So we're not going to discredit that. Now, the importance of that is even more evident when you see families that don't have that. Now, there was a point in time where I was part of a forum, and, you know, a lady actually mentioned that she really hated the term dysfunctional family. And yes, it is a social terminology, you know, to say dysfunctional family, but I feel like there's no other way to kind of describe it. So for this particular talk, we are going to say dysfunctional family. I don't want to say broken home, because broken home I don't know, it's just, I don't know, dysfunctional family, let's just go with that. Or let's just say where fathers are not present, you know, absent, MIA dads, let's call them MIA dads. Yeah, that's better. So in the lives of particular women who their father have been MIA, missing in action, as we said before, there seems to be this pattern of, number one, and this is not for everyone, okay, this is not a generic, you know, whitewash or just covering everyone with the same cloak. This is just for the ones that seem to come out into the, you know, into everyone's, basically their social media, things that stand out to us more, because normally it's bad news that makes news, right? So they talk about promiscuity, they talk about trust issues, they talk about, you know, I don't know how to, I guess promiscuity will cover that, where you have like women being termed a slut, for example, because they find comfort in so many different guys, but they're unable to actually commit to the guy because they have trust issues. They cannot actually give their entire self to that particular guy or to any guy. And this is probably stemming from the hurt that they felt from the first father figure or the first male figure in their family, which originally or primarily is supposed to be their father. So just a word out there to guys who don't show up or are missing in action. One thing I personally believe, I believe that sometimes when people are giving you a particular type of character, it's because that's what has been the norm for them. So sometimes a lot of these guys that are missing in action probably did not have someone who was there constantly, or they didn't have someone to actually tell them how important it is to actually be there, to actually be present. Because we have a lot of, let's just say, broken families or broken homes, or, you know, single mothers or single fathers, where actually the father is still playing a big role. Or we have fathers who work away from home. They work in a completely different country. I had a friend, still have a friend, who he was saying to me, he speaks to his dad every single day. His dad is a constructor or architect or something, and he was working in Dubai during the time that Dubai was coming up. And he said even till now, whenever his dad travels, he never fails to speak to the family every single day. If he doesn't speak, he might send a message, how are you guys? I'm okay over here. He might send a picture, a funny picture. He was always present. Your mum told me your homework wasn't finished. Why did you not finish it? I expect better of you. Even though I'm not there, I still expect you to be doing the things you're supposed to do as my son, as my daughter. These are the things that his dad was actually doing, even though his dad was not there physically. His dad was still making sure that mentally he impressed in his children's minds that he was still watching them, and he was watching them through the eyes of their mum, basically. And I remember the guy I'm talking about, he's about 25, 24 or something. And he said, as far as he's concerned, his dad is his hero. So sometimes you can be not present, but you shouldn't be missing in action, in the sense that you can still leave an impression, a positive impression in the minds of your children. You can still be there for them. You can still support them through whatever that they're going through. Because a lot of the times when children are young, they don't really want your money. What they actually want is just for you to be there. They want you to be the annoying parent. They want you to ask questions that they don't want to answer. They want you to never mind your own business. They want you to mind their business for them. Even though they might put up a front or say, oh, dad, stop asking me this embarrassing question, deep inside they still feel that they're better off than someone who doesn't have that. So trust issues, we've talked about trust on this show before. I've used myself as an example, as I always tend to do. But I wanted to kind of leave the finger pointing or the blaming game. We don't want to play that right now. What I really want to do is I want to go into what can be done to get us or whoever is out of the state that they're in. But before we do that, let's talk about guys. So daddy issues always seems to be kind of like a title given to women who, you know, have these kind of things that we talked about, these attributes or whatnot, these qualities that aren't really qualities, you know. But I do feel like men actually suffer from daddy issues as well. Not all men, some men. Actually, I was reading this thing and it was saying daddy issues tend to be more of a sexist insult, as if to imply women sexually replace their absent fathers. But of course, families are always different for both men and women. So it's not more common for women to have issues with their fathers than men. And I'm coming from a particular era where, okay, so aside from culture, because I've been influenced a lot by Nigerian culture, coming to this country, I did see that, and growing up in this country, I noticed that young guys, when their father is not around, they tend to display a lot of misdemeanor. There is a lot of juvenile delinquency in young men whose fathers are not around, and it's of no fault of their mothers, because the truth is, as a woman, you have a child, there's only so much you can do, there's only so much you can impart in that child. But what happens is that if you are in a society that finds it okay to say the reason why you cannot excel in life is because your father was not around, and people feed into that, it's kind of like a reverse psychology, right? It messes with that person's mind, and it tells them that, okay, it's my father's fault that I can get nowhere in life because he was never here to teach me. He never taught me football. He never taught me swimming. You know, even if my mom did, my dad never did it. So therefore, I'm going to be such and such. I'm going to show a level of resentment towards authority. I'm going to show a level of resentment towards the law. And when I look for a father figure, I'm not going to look for one in a close community that has more positive influence. I'm going to look for a father figure in the roadman up the road that's selling, you know, weed and stuff like that, because he knows more about the road and we live here. So he's the better option to teach me what I need to know. And the truth is, we might scoff at these things I'm saying, but there are a lot of people whose minds work that way. And what's so scary about it is that the family structure, how important the family structure is, you only see it when it's not doing its job anymore. For example, the level of, I don't know, how would I explain it? Gangs. You see gangs in London, in Leeds, in Manchester, urban city areas. It's really high. Like, it's really, really disturbingly high. It's becoming petrifying. And the reason because of that, whether or not these children or these men or these women or these girls would admit to it, the reason is actually because they're sick and tired, of whatever it is that they have at home. So sometimes you might come from the perfect family. And this is not to say that you don't have gang members or deviant children or teenagers or young adults who come from... So what I'm trying to say is you can still have that from people who come from the perfect nuclear family. But the thing is, it doesn't matter if on the surface you have mum, dad, child. There could still be a missing element. You could still have the mum that's not paying attention. You could still have the father that's not paying attention. Sometimes when we forego our own roles, for me, I am a daughter, I am a sister, I am an auntie. And I'm always thinking of my role in my family, the role I have to play, and the people it's connected with. And what that helps me to do is it helps me to relate better to them. And I expect that from everybody else in my family. So I expect them to treat me with a level of respect and love and care and tenderness. And I do the same to them, reciprocal. And sometimes nuclear families, that is the perfect looking family, mum, dad and children, they might not have that. So you still have children going out and joining gangs. Anywho, this is basically just to highlight that men do go through daddy issues as well. We see it all the time. Sometimes they're made to feel even worse when men grow up with their mothers. Sometimes you have like people stigmatizing that guy that grew up with his mom and saying that he's too effeminate, he's too weak, he's too soft, and that makes him resent even more his father for not being there or being able to teach him what he should have learned. Or for example, you have the men who are chauvinistic and they treat women like trash, or they're bound to lose their temper more often because they don't have anyone that's actually going to pattern that for them. So that's also another side of the coin. You also see, and I think this is the one that tends to come out more with men with daddy issues. You see the ones who are afraid of being vulnerable. They're scared of commitment. They're scared of being found out or exposed. They don't want to be open to anyone. And I think that one is, okay, I don't want to say it's the worst, but this is just a word out there. Sometimes we go through a lot of things in life that causes us to build up a wall, a barrier. We develop a bulletproof mindset. But what happens is that as much as it's there to keep you safe from, I don't know, prying eyes or prying minds or people who are too inquisitive, what it also does on the flip side, and this is the negative side of it, is that it stops you from actually expressing yourself. And when you do, it's always going to be from a defensive state. So sometimes you find that you are highly argumentative for no good reason. You're never willing to lose. You don't ever want to lose. So that means you're going to be quick to pick a fight. You're a sore loser. I'm not saying these only happen to people who have daddy issues. I'm just saying sometimes these are attributes that stem, or characteristics that stem from not having a male figure to kind of quell that, to have, sometimes dads, you ask them questions and they don't really know the answer, but they just kind of give you this this weird answer, this very long answer, and sometimes it may not even be right, but the fact that you're just having a conversation with your mom or your dad or your grandfather or your uncle, uncles always have answers to everything. And sometimes that leaves you at a place of comfort. You feel better that someone's actually listening to you and they're actually trying to answer your questions. You feel more valued. You feel heard. And a lot of people don't feel that way, especially men. And sometimes what that does is they're just so tight with their emotions. It's very, it's kind of sad actually. So we talked too much about those things now, and I really want to get into what can be done to help ourselves, people that are in that kind of situation. How can we help ourselves? So the truth is, okay, the first thing I'm going to mention, which I've already said before, is seek advice or get help, especially from professionals. Sometimes people just want a listening ear. Okay, so you might just be looking for that listening ear. So I will say, if you do want to call in, if you do want to send a message, you can. This is PRZ FM 109.2. You can speak to me, Cece. You can speak to the other radio hosts on this show as well, and just feel free to have an outlet. Write, speak, sing, challenge yourself, do some sports, have something that's helping you blow off the steam. Okay, So yes, professionals. Nowadays things are so much more easier because of access to internet. I remember when I first came to this country, and even a while after as well, a couple of years after, the internet wasn't that easy to access. You had to disconnect your telephone and then plug in the other, it was just long. And if someone wanted to be on your phone, be on the house phone, but you were on a thing, you had to fight your siblings, and whoever won was going to get whatever they wanted. So that's not how it is now. Now we have the internet on our phones. We have it in our pockets. We have it everywhere we're going. So if you are looking for someone to speak to, there are so many therapeutic measures that you can find online. There are actually non-profit organizations, and what they do is they're just listening ears. So you can actually call and just tell them how you feel. It's not a bad thing to be vulnerable. It's not a bad thing to say you're not okay, or say that you do feel some type of anger towards your father. Even if your father passed away and you felt that you were robbed of having a dad when you were growing up, or in your teenage years, or you're an orphan, or any of those things, you can call into these particular organizations and speak to someone. It is highly, highly, highly confidential. Your information will not be given to a third party. Every single thing you say is between you and the person that you're speaking to. So please feel confident enough to speak to someone. And another thing as well with having an outlet, one thing I realized about writing is that in me telling my stories, it allowed other people to tell theirs. The reason being is that there's always going to be someone else that's going through exactly what you're going through, or something similar, but they are afraid to say it. And when they see you confidently speak about it, even if you're nervous when you say it, it actually tells them that they're not alone. And a lot of the times, remember guys, we are relational beings. Knowing that someone else is going through what we're going through helps us. It helps us to be more to face what we're going through, and to actually speak about it, and to be confident in the fact that I can speak about it. And the more I speak about it, the better I feel, and I can find solutions, I can find alternatives. The second thing is just to take the reins over your life. We've heard stories of, my mum was a drug addict and it's her fault because she introduced me to drugs. Sometimes we really need to be able to take the reins over our own lives and just kind of be responsible for yourself. The reason is because usually, and I've noticed this is just the thing with humanity, when we make mistakes, people do not blame the other person that caused you to do it. They will blame you. They will never say, oh yeah, it was this person and then that person and that cousin's person and the cousin's uncle's auntie. No. What they tend to do is they say, even though they were influenced, they should have done this about it. So what I would always say is, be more accountable for yourself. Find your own happiness. Find what is true to you. Just because your father wasn't around and he was literally just moving around like a living corpse doesn't mean you have to be the same with your own children or with people around you. So you see like a lot of people who are shut off emotionally, and they find it so hard to actually have easy going conversations. When you ask them stuff, I don't want to talk about it, or they mumble a lot of things, and therein lies a fundamental problem that this person is finding it very, very difficult to express themselves. So we need to find the root of that problem. Is it from the daddy issues? Is it from abuse? What is it actually stemming from? So as much as you may have gone through so many things, you have to forgive that person. I know that sounds so, it's like the biggest thing you could ever ask, but you need to forgive that person, because if you don't, it will continue to haunt you. And not only will that haunting affect you, it will affect everything that you put out. So in a way you react to people, your response to happiness, your response to joy, your response to good things coming at you won't be as long-lived as you wish it would be, because that kind of resentment, that anger, the heat, it will always be there in the back of your mind, and it will never really allow you to enjoy your life the way you should. So do not shy away from commitment. I've also noticed a lot of guys as well, even women as well, when they find themselves, I guess you could say, the promiscuous side of things, as it does exist, they find it very hard to commit to a relationship, to commit to, just not even romantic relationships. It could just be friendships, because once they see that you're getting too close, they don't want you to get that close anymore. So they immediately distance themselves. So just be careful of that. Don't shy away from commitment. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't look at people and judge for yourselves whether this person is a positive influence or not. It just means that try and be around more people. Have, again, like I said, an outlet. Have someone that you're constantly, or someone that you're speaking to. Be accountable for your own actions. Just because your father was missing doesn't, or in action, doesn't mean you have to be. Just because your father did whatever he did doesn't mean that you have to treat someone else that particular way. Because what happens a lot of the time is, when we are hurt, we take out the anger on other people. I'm sure we've seen it even with our own family members, where they've had a bad day and they just immediately snap at other people. And as much as we can say, yeah, it's an excuse, it's not actually an excuse. Let's have higher standards of ourselves, learn to control our anger, and learn to speak about your day. If you really did have a bad day, then talk about it. Not necessarily pour on someone else the anger you're feeling and then make that person have an equally as bad day as you're having, So challenge yourself to be above and better than your past. This is extremely, extremely, extremely important. Challenge yourself daily to be above and better than your past. A lot of people spend a lot of time looking back in the past and letting it dictate what their future should look like, what it should sound like. And sometimes that doesn't really leave your future a lot of room to develop, it doesn't leave your mind a lot of gaps to actually flourish. So when I say challenge yourself to be above and better than your past, forget your past. If your father missed out on an amazing personality such as yourself, then that's him. That's just him. That was his choice. Your choice is to continue winning in life, as you are going to do. And when you have your own children, you will be there and you will teach them the importance of the family network, why it's so important to the grand scheme of sociology, why the family network is so crucial and intrinsic. Why does it make so much sense to actually care about people that you love and be there, even if you're not there, even if you live 5 miles away from each other, to still call. I'm sure we all have siblings who live, in another country or live in another borough, or, instead of living in London with you, they live in Kent, or they live in Middlesbrough, or they live in Scotland, but you still call and you still say, how are you doing? How are the kids? Or, how's the work life there? How's uni? These kind of things. It does actually begin from the small factors. The small things will eventually add up and make up something much bigger that will actually have a greater impact in your life positively. So be accountable. Take over the reins of your life. Seek help. Because the reason why that seeking help is so crucial is because I need you to understand that your voice actually matters. Your voice matters in such a way that someone else is waiting for you to tell your story so that they can get out of whatever it is that they're going through. So you might have had an abusive past, an abusive childhood, and there's someone else that's probably going through that now, and they might even be in their adult years and are struggling to come out of that because they're still in that toxic relationship, or they still have someone who's verbally abusive to them, and they need someone else to tell them that, listen, I've been through that and this is what I did, step 1, 2, 3, so and so forth, and this is how I got out of that. Yes, sometimes I may relapse and I may think about what could have been, but I am still moving on. I'm still surging ahead. I'm still doing great for myself. These kind of things. So be one with yourself. I always say the better version of yourself is on the other side of your fears. Do not be afraid to rip off that veil. Do not be afraid to pull down that barrier that you set that's kind of blocking people out. Do not be afraid to take off that bulletproof mindset that doesn't really allow people in. Go out and see the world, experience other cultures, and just get to know yourself and become one with yourself. Because if you continue to live based off of what these people have impacted in their life, you're no more living your life, you're living their life. And that's not fun, is it? So just what I would say is the things I've already mentioned, I'll say them again. Get help and seek advice, because that is very important. Take over the reins of your life. Become accountable for yourself. Be responsible for your own actions. Do not shy away from commitment. There's so many lovely people to meet out there in the world. No man's an island. And challenge yourself to be above and beyond your past. Your past doesn't have to dictate what your future should look or sound like, okay? That's in your present hands right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to CC Stanleys. I really, 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 really hope that this has, sparked a change, or at least a different type of thought. And guys, I'm waiting to hear feedback. So just get at me. Remember, you can send all your information to thisgirlvents@przfm.com.